Welcome, everyone, to Two Guys in Hockey Talk. I am Pawel the Cat at Hockey Score Under 2 on my Twitter /X feed, and I've got my wonderful ex-partner, REV. Ev, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. You can follow me at REV, guys. Evan REV Renaerts. Great to be back. We have, each week we say we have a jam-packed show. I'm worried we're even going to get through 80% of the content tonight. We're going to have to move fast and move swift, buddy. And we got, 8 episodes left?
Yep, before the end of the season and the 3-hour plus draft. So make sure you tune in, because that's always a hoot. We bring it to you, and we really do not keep our sticks on the ice. But more on that later. Evan, it is season 6, episode 34. I've got my beverage. It's beautiful Jasper Brewing Company. Cheers to your Timmy's coffee.
Well, just so people know, Tim Horton, the former great Toronto Maple Leaf, creator of Tim Hortons Coffee, who I believe is American-owned now, by the way, but we'll talk about that another time.
So welcome to the show. We've got a jam-packed, as Evan said. We've got a lot to cover, so we're going to jump into it. But remember, guys, that we are here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We are on Facebook, on YouTube, on X/Twitter, and on Instagram. Give us a follow. We have a website. We've got weekly articles up there all the time. And we want to thank our sponsors who have partnered with us all throughout the season to help us bring hockey to you. All right, Evan. There's a lot going on. Now, we'll get to the postseason in a bit here, because there's a lot going on there. But the one thing is there's 16 other teams working on a few things, including some coaching and GM jobs that have been filled this week. Now, where did you want to begin? Did you want to begin with the ones that have been filled, or did you want to talk about the ones that are currently vacant, like a Boston, like a Seattle, like a Pittsburgh, and like a Chicago?
4 teams, yeah. Yeah, and so it's essentially we've got guys like Woodcroft, DJ Smith, Marco Stern, Peter Laviolette. We got quite a few coaches. Mitch Love, who's now in the picture for a lot. We'll name a few other coaches. So why don't we down to the Kings? And why don't you give everyone the update if they have been in La La Land, and I don't mean L.A. La La Land, but somewhere else outside of L.A., and they're not familiar with what's just came down this week.
For sure. So it was announced today, and he's having his presser tomorrow, that Mr. Ken Holland, the legendary GM of the Detroit Red Wings and more recently the Edmonton Oilers, will now be the GM for the LA Kings. He's coming in. They were looking to shake things up after losing again to the Edmonton Oilers in the first round. They knew they couldn't keep status quo. They needed a change. Rob Blake is out. He's been interviewing with other roles, but they're trying to bring in him because if you can't beat him, Evan, join him. And so you get the enemy on your side and you help him. Now, from what I'm hearing and rumblings is that it's a shorter term report. He did interview for the Islanders job, but that's more of a long-term bill. They're looking at, a little bit more of a progression. Although it was noted that when people were asking about it, and you guys can go follow it because we get these details, and Evan and I often talk on Twitter /X, it sounded like Holland was interested in the Islanders job, but there's more of a longing there for a long process. And what someone said on the inside there from the Islanders, one of my sources, is that they would prefer even to make the playoffs and get kicked out of the first round. I know that's what not a lot of fan bases want to hear, but that dollar sign that comes in with that playoff revenue, that's something the Islanders are looking at, and they want a piece of that. So he's coming into LA. Exactly. He's going to try to shake things up. Now, say what you want about Holland. Overall, he did have a dynasty in Detroit. He's made some good trades, made some questionable ones, but he did good. He knows how to make a good trade. His contracts are, albeit he's learned from them. There's definitely some interesting ones at the end. With Detroit, as people know, he really pushed that franchise to the brink because of the fact that they continued to make the playoffs for so many years. What was it? 22, 23 years, like they kept going hard and hard. Like that's an impressive feat. So you're getting a veteran, you're getting somebody in the guy that knows the game, and you're getting somebody who is going to be able to make a quick impact and knows the game. However, LA Kings fan and Edmonton fans know this very well. Holland is patient and likes to over-ripen his draft picks, and he does not always bat 100 when it comes to his prospect pool and to players out of the draft. Just my comments. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, and it's kind of the team that are around him, right? But I mean, LA has never really rushed their prospects. I mean, just take a look, even at this season, when you're talking about Brant Clark, who should have been played more in the playoffs. So yeah, so coming in, Ken Holland here, right? The presser should be tomorrow, the official presser. He was not looking. There's no rebuild going on right now in LA. That's not, they want to try and win right now. But it is believed right now that there could be, in this plan of hiring Holland, a succession plan that is in place, that there is someone who will be bringing in a fresher and a younger name, but that is already in the pre-works when this deal was put together, which actually moves us over to the island. So let's go over to the Islanders for a moment now, because he did interview for the position, but again, theirs was a longer plan, but something even more important, and not sure some of you are aware of this, there is potential that Lou Lamoriello will still be involved, and news has leaked out that Malkin, so Malkin and Collins is the one that calls the shots. Malkin is one of the owners. He did not want to fire Lou Lamoriello. Collins did it anyway. And Malkin wants Lou Lamoriello to still stick around in some capacity. And that is a part of the reason, not just because of the term, but and the rebuild concept, because there was some potential ways that they can go, especially with this offseason. So that's actually causing a bit of a problem for whoever is going to go in there. They're going to have to be prepared, because until Malkin and Collins can get this figured out, I don't know if they're going to get a GM outside of the franchise.
100%. And I know Buffalo was really trying to push for Lou to get in there because of his experience, because of what he's been able to do. And they need something like that in Buffalo. But you're right, he is sticking around. They have some big decisions to make, including not only picking the first, first overall draft pick again, but also they got to figure out Noah Dobson. He could be, and we're going to get into it later, and he's an RFA. He could be offer sheeted. Now, before we move quickly on this topic, hey, Nancy,
there's some more.
Prather, I believe. I want to make sure that I'm pronouncing this right. Knights, I hope you're supporting your team, because it's going to be a battle tonight. And Vegas is going to bring their best. We're going to get into it later. You can let us know where you're tuning in from. And great hockey tonight. I like that little pun. Very well played, Nancy.
Okay, so a little bit more around the Islanders. You got some more info on them before we move on?
That they're still looking at a few coaches, they're still kind of figuring things out in terms of GMs. And I think they're going to want somebody who has an experience. And I would really love to see what they do, because again, like the LA Kings, that team is not far off, right? But the problem with Islanders, Evan, is they want scoring. Now, are they going to go after someone like a Marner, like a Nikolai Ehlers this offseason, like a Sam Bennett, who can put the puck in the net and get you 20, 30 goals? They did that with Duclair. It didn't work out. It'll be interesting to see. So,
well, and there is possible
seat this summer.
So there is some possible trade movement right now in talks with Brock Nelson. Potentially that could be looked at the draft time. There is heavy interest in Brock Besner. And remember, Brock Besner and Bo Horvat, there's something to that. Don't forget that. They have a good connection. And some of the candidates, not only Holland has interviewed, but Kekalainen, Darche, and Bergevin. So those guys are still sitting out there. I got to tell you, if they could go with Jaromir Kekalainen, that would be an incredible move if they can get him in. But I don't think he's coming in if Lou's still around. So that would be my thoughts.
I agree with you. So we'll let you guys know what's going to happen there. But essentially what it comes down to is that the Islanders have a lot of business to take care of. And there's no shortage of time, because the draft's coming up quickly, and they need to make these decisions quickly. And you need a GM to come in there to make that, decision. And Nancy says, Vegas, baby, but no Stone tonight. Unfortunately, he is out, as is Brandon Saad. So next on the docket, we have the Boston Bruins. Now, we talked about how they still need a coach. There's still a lot of debate there. We have a lot of Bruins fans that tune into the show. But Evan, have you heard anything happening around the Bruins organization?
Yeah, so interesting enough, the Bruins do have a big interest in Jay Woodcroft. That they're probably one of the ones that have the most interest, and he's interviewed in a lot of positions, so he's been getting around. There is a lot of interest in Marco Sturm and Donskov. So just so you guys know, Donskov is the assistant coach in Vegas. So, of course, nothing can happen right now without permission being given, and they're not wanting any distractions at this point of time. So they're kind of the three that are sitting there. I do not see them bringing Lavalliette in. I can't see that at all. I haven't heard even an interview for him. I'm not sure that that's even a match. But Woodcroft could be a very good candidate, in my opinion, for the Boston Bruins.
Some good insight there. And Zilstra is tuning in from Kamloops. Hello, Zilstra. We wanted to wish you a happy belated birthday. I know you just had it over the weekend. I also want to say that my partner here has turned another year younger. That is why he has the agility of a cat. That is why I work with him, because he is cat-like, and he's got those cat-like reflexes, as he likes to tell me. So happy birthday, big man. I hope that whatever team you cheer for, you got to celebrate with somehow. Maybe play some La Bamba, right?
That's right.
Now, moving over to one of the other original 6 teams, we've got Chicago. They also have a backbench open for a coach. Now, they've gone after a few players. We've talked about it on previous episodes. I think it was episode 31. We talked about it. You guys can go back and watch that episode. Great insight there. But there's something happening there. And do you know anything going on with Anders Sorensen? Because I know he was there as an interim coach for a while.
Yeah.
You've heard about Woodcroft, and then there's more happening with Kyle Davidson that he's working
on. and Woodcroft, that has not been made public at all. I trust the source. The source says that he's been there. I don't know to the degree, if it was a slight conversation. I'm right now leading in the direction that they're going with Sorensen for another year or two for sure, because they know there's a bit of rebuild, and then you're probably going to replace out whatever coach that is. They still are work to do in the offseason. So I wonder if they just track back to Sorensen, give him a little bit of time to continue the work that he previously had done. If they go with Woodcroft, it's because they believe they can speed things up a little bit, and they feel he'll be good with working with the young guys like he did with Edmonton.
Interesting. And speaking of another team trying to make the postseason, and we discussed it a little bit at the end of last week of speculation, and it happened right after technically our show ended. But Joe Quenneville has essentially been hired on as a head coach. So we already went through what Anaheim needs. You guys can go back to last week's episode 33 of season 6. Great. It's on YouTube and on our Facebook page. But Evan, quick thoughts on Joe Quenneville coming back into the lead, being cleared by the league, and what this means for the Anaheim Ducks.
A lot of people don't like this, especially with the timing with the Team Canada stuff and the sexual assault, which is totally unrelated to the situation. I'd be more concerned about Stan Bowman coming in with the actual Oilers organization as someone that was in charge of management than I would be the coach who did make the report and just did not follow up on that report. Call it wrong, call it whatever. But to actually blame the guy for it, I'm just not in that wheelhouse. I'm not with you guys on that one. I understand why. I understand your frustration. If you've been you're a survivor of any of the abuse, I get it. But let's just put all that aside. He is now the head coach of the Anaheim Ducks. This is probably, and we talked about this last week, this is probably the best landing spot because it will go under the news and under the radar a lot better in Anaheim than probably anywhere else in the NHL.
It's just interesting to think what other teams potentially reached out and if they were comfortable enough to taking that, gamble, to so to speak, in hiring him, Quenneville. And I'm looking at Vancouver Canucks. Now, we'll get into Vancouver's hire a little bit later, but, you think to yourself, would that be a team that potentially would bring in a coach like that with his veteran experience, but given the media noise in Vancouver? So we'll see what happens. We wish Anaheim the best. There's a lot of background noise about what's happening there. We won't get into all of it, but you guys can let us know what your thoughts are. Jordan is chiming in, and he's letting us know that look for teams to go after Gardner McDougall out of Moncton. Any quick thoughts there, Evan?
Sorry, what was that? I was pulling up information on a couple things.
Jordan said, look for teams to go after Gardner McDougall out of Moncton.
So who is he referring to? Because I don't even know who Gardner is, Jordan. I'm actually kind of caught off guard.
I'd have to look it up. But we'll have to take a peek and do a little quick research on what's it called? Gardner McDougall. He is an elite
Jordan. Yeah, Jordan will do the work. He'll put it in there for us. Jordan, update us, man. What are you thinking here?
Oh, he's going to be a head coach. That's what they're looking at. He's a guy. He's 65 years of age. He has some high praise.
I got you.
He's been a coach at the University of New Brunswick, the Moncton Wildcats in the QM.
And right now he's in the finals. We'll get into that around the rink later, but he's right now in the finals of the QM, the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, and will be in the Memorial Cup. So I totally get it. I think he's an incredible coach. I agree with you.
Now we get into the Seattle Kraken. You know, they're coming in on their, I believe, 5th year in the league. So it's been impressive how quickly time flies, right, when you think about it. But they have a decision to make about their team, their franchise. You let go of Dan Bilesma after 1 year, which was a surprise to many. Are you hearing anything about the head coach job? And I believe the guy who got the job in Philly was one of the guys, Rick Tocchet, who got interviewed for it. But any thoughts on the Seattle situation?
They're like, right now, they're like Chicago. So this is like trying to walk through a sand pit right now. I got to admit it, Francis is good. However, it is unofficial that they've reached out and had interest or conversations or interview. I'm not sure in which capacity with Woodcroft. Again, I said Woodcroft's been in a lot of mix. Lavliette and Jay Leach. So Jay Leach was in the running before Dan Bilesma previously. And while I don't have any indications of who they would prefer most, you got to wonder if this time they think they should have went with Jay Leach last time around. And this time they actually pick him up and go with the new guy because they're in a rebuild anyway. Or not a rebuild. They're still trying to get off the ground other than a one-time wonder, right?
It's kind of a retool what they're kind of trying to do. So it'll be interesting to see. I will say that Adam Larson out of Team Sweden is having a good double IHF. Is performing very well. So you always love to see players succeed at other levels because that really builds confidence. So we'll get into that a little bit later because there's a lot. But now Rick Tocchet is now partnered up with the Philadelphia Flyers. He has come home. He is closer to his family. He has signed a contract. He was a player there for a very long time amongst a few others. What do you make of this beautiful marriage?
Sorry, I am so distracted tonight. I got so many things coming in right now. Can I just get before because I missed your question again, and I apologize. I had something coming. Hang on. I had news coming in. That's why I don't want to get lost on this. So, someone that I'm working with Joel Quinville, you had talked about. Wonder who else out there. So while they didn't have formal interviews, the Rangers had looked into it. Seattle Kraken, the Boston Bruins, and the Flyers had all looked into Quinville. So heads up, just not a formal interview was had. Okay, sorry, come back on that. Thanks. I just want to thank you to a friend of mine for that info.
Nope, that's good. This is why we like to report as much as we can, as factually as we can. We don't want to get it wrong. We do like to speculate sometimes, but we want to make sure we get the right news and the correct information to you guys. So, in terms of the Philadelphia Flyers and Rick Tocchet being hired there, he gave up a lot of money out in Vancouver to come play here. You reported about it on your Twitter/X feed, but he is now a Philadelphia Flyer. He played there. What do you make of this marriage?
If you go, so you and I might have differing opinions on this one. Guys, go check out Jamie Baskow. He was not expecting this. So in this situation, when we're talking about the Flyers on talking, they feel they hit their guy. I thought right away they would go this way. Again, they were looking and kicking tires on a lot of other people. Some people got hired they were actually interested in already in other places. They wanted David Carl. That is kind of the number one who went back to the University of Denver, who had also interviewed previously for Chicago, decided to pull out and went back. Tocchet, to me, is a lot like Torts. He doesn't coach the same when the way he deals with people is the same, in my opinion. In other words, what he expects. Now, something that people don't get. Can I just say this? In his seasons of coaching, okay, he has 7 times missed the playoffs. 1 time he was a first-round exit. 1 time he was a second-round exit. You guys catch that?
Yeah.
So 9 years of coaching, he's only got to the second round once, the first round once. And now you can blame the teams he's been on, but he doesn't have this incredible track record. I know what happened in that 1 year. Hey, you guys remember Bruce Boudreau the year before? Everyone was praising him, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're gone, which I think was which I actually didn't feel that was needed to happen. I think he could have turned that team around. I think that was a part of their handling. I'm not big on the chemistry that's going to happen. I will say, I feel like he wants to bring back the big, rough kind of Flyers of the late 80s. That's mid 80s, late 80s. That's what I think he wants to bring back, his glory days, the days when you had Tim Kerr and Dave Poulin, Brad Marsh, all those guys. I think that's how he wants to play. And I'm a little worried about Mishkov in this kind of manner, which we'll talk about in a little bit too. Now, Jamie Baskow does report that Brad Shaw, who was also up to the running, who everyone was starting to think he might be the guy that got it when David Carl backed out, had said he will be an assistant, but there is also talk that it's very possibly that they may bring in Luke Richardson as an assistant coach. So does that mean that Brad Shaw wouldn't? And does Brad Shaw want to stay? So you can go check out Jamie Baskow, who we follow as one of our former guests.
Yeah, and it also sounds like Luke Richardson, who was the former Chicago head coach, will potentially join the bench to add a little bit extra.
I don't feel bad tonight. I just said that, and you're repeating me, so now I feel good because I wasn't paying attention, and now obviously you didn't hear what I said. We're doing good tonight, buddy. We got so much going on. I think we got so much going on here. So
I guess the question, sorry, I meant to ask is, do you think that the Flyers are a team that can offer sheet someone given the picks that they have?
Oh yeah. So I don't believe they're looking at offer sheeting anybody, and I'll tell you why. This is the year of Gavin McKenna. You have a chance. You missed the playoffs. Look what just happened with the New York Islanders. What if they're in the same spot and they get Gavin McKenna? Or even a top 3. This is not the year to try and go offer sheet somebody when you have to give up that first round. And anyone that doesn't a first round is not going to be a player you need. So I do not believe they'll offer sheet. I believe they'll try to find ways and naggle around trades and or picks and try and get a UFA. I do not think they'll do an RFA this year. I don't even think anyone's going to give up the shot at an RFA unless they're a high contender already and they have no chance at Gavin McKenna. That's just my personal opinion.
And speaking of the Battle of Pennsylvania, we know the Pittsburgh Penguins are in pure rebuild mode, but it sounds like Evgeny Malkin most likely will retire next year. We don't know if there's any truth to it. He is at the end of his contract. There was a lot of rumblings about what would happen. He has a home in Florida, so you never know if he might be traded and or finish his career in Florida for a 1-year kind of show me deal and trade to help bolster and go on one more playoff run. And we know Florida right now is competitive. They're playing against Toronto tonight. You guys can let us know the score. But there's also a search for a head coach. Now, where do you think Kyle Dubas is at with that, Evan?
Yeah, so now this is very interesting. Remember, we talked last week. He's at the World Juniors. He's made it known that in his situation right now, they were looking at assistant head coaches who were currently already out there. Donska out of Vegas was one of them, but DJ Smith has been interviewed. DJ Smith, guys, former coach in Ottawa. And they have an outside shot of interest in Jay Woodcroft. And there is kind of, would they be interested in Jay Leach also if Kraken don't move in that direction? They do not seem rushed on this, which tells me rebuild, which I might jump on your speculation now. While Crosby never planned any of this to go in this direction, could he now maybe decide either retire early, or do I just stick around and just kind of hang out for these next 3 years and kind of mentor, or do I really want a shot to do something special in these last? So I'm starting to wonder, because I can't. They're going with youth now. I think they're making the change, and I'd be looking for a trade this offseason with Carlson any way they can.
Okay, interesting. So we'll keep you guys updated if there are any changes or updates. Make sure to follow us on X at REV or hockey_2. Now, moving back forward to the Pacific Coast with the Vancouver Canucks. They have announced that Adam Foote is the new head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. I know they want to talk it. They offered him $4.5 million to being one of the higher paid coaches in the league. Remember when Babcock signed that big $5 million check with the Toronto Maple Leafs? But it seems like they found their guy. He's popular, specifically with Quinn Hughes, and there's a lot going on. He beat out Manny Malhotra. But it is a popular move. Your thoughts on Adam Foote becoming the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks?
Oh, I'm having a hard time understanding some of this, other than I think that I kind of follow a little bit what you're talking about on X, seeing what other responses are. I think Manny Malhotra was the right choice. However, Foote has a very close relationship with Quinn. We all believe they're doing everything they can to keep Quinn and move forward. He does have a good connection and relationship with some of the other guys on the team that do like him. However, nothing's going to change with Pettersson. He'll be that same relationship. He's a lot like Tocchet in that sense. Whereas Manny Malhotra, I think, would have worked better with a newer generation of player. And I think he would have made them more of an offensive team just with his dynamics. I'm worried this will really change up now the dynamics of how he's going to play the team. And I do not believe, and this is going to be important because the Oilers are always going to be there and the Kings. And if you play too defensive of a game, I don't think you beat either one of those in the playoffs. And that's what I think that he's going to do. He's going to bring more of a defensive game, more like an LA King kind of a thing. That's just my opinion, but I'm going to stick to it.
No, fair enough. And I want to bring up one thing because I saw it on X, and there was a lot of rumblings. And of course, it has to be noted that Adam Foote's son, yes, is involved in this SA scandal that's happening with the World Juniors right now out in Ontario. So we are aware of that. However, there is much more behind the scenes, and you can't say a lot about this just because Adam is the father, right? We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We can't speak for it. They are related, but so is Nolan Foote, and no one's going after Nolan Foote and what he's doing between his time between the Devils and the Utica Comets. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer in the situation. All I will say is that there's still a lot of information to be determined, and it's for the courts to decide as this trial continues on. Simple as that. But I know there's been rumblings on X about, is this a good PR stunt and stuff with the NHL? That's a whole discussion for another time. You guys can have it. We are not going to have it here. That was it.
And if you want to follow anything on the trial, just go read Rick Westwood's stuff on TSN, guys. Just head over there. They got the most accurate and factual information that you.
Yeah.
So, hey, big news in Vancouver land. Tom Wielander finally
signs his entry. Yep. So he signs it. His leverage over the Canucks is that he could have waited and left as a UFA in 2027. And we know Cam Robinson of the Elite Prospects, who's followed this situation very closely. So we appreciate all the reporting he's done on this. Still believes he could get traded in some deal in the offseason, but he got the full pay of what he wanted. And so in year one, the breakdown of the contract will be $500K. Year two would be $900K, and year three is $1 million. So there's
that's with full bonuses. If he hits all the bonuses, that'll be his pay. So.
And Zilster says, last year than UFA, and Nancy gives us a thumbs up. I hope it's for all the good work we've been doing. So thank you, Nancy. Go Knights, go for your end. So,
hey, a quick note: Marco Stern. Yeah, Marco Stern did interview. Just so you guys know, that was another. They did a lot. Marco Stern has been the head coach for the Ontario Reign the last 3 seasons. His name is out there right now. And I do want to say something amidst all this stuff going on. The Canucks have increased their ticket prices again. Now, Anaheim is barely raising ticket prices, but they're spending $1 billion on their arena right now. Vancouver is spending big, but man, they're handing the fans this huge bill. I think that they need to be better than that, especially at these times. But obviously, they don't seem to care about the everyday fan, and they're really separating themselves. I think PR, you should have made some changes or should not have raised your prices when your team is struggling like this. Bad timing. I know Edmonton did the same thing, good or bad, and they just kept doing it. And sometimes when you're in a hockey hotbed, you just make your money. You don't really seem to care about how financially people are. So that's frustrating I think we're representing most people, right?
100%. And so that brings us to the end of this segment. We're going to get back into a little bit more of of some NHL news. But right now, we've got Around the Rink.
If you're a fan of hard-hitting, exciting hockey, catch the Kalkaska Battlers.
Around the Rink
Is brought to you by the Kalkaska Battlers. Let them be your local hockey heroes.
All right, Evan, we've got some Around the Rink information. Woo! Where do you want to begin?
I almost thought I heard you say Around the Ink, which would be a good lead because we're going to talk about the NCAA, who has a lot of money going out there, especially when players now can come and make nil. That's based off your name and image and so forth, endorsement packages in millions for these young people who never would get that in the CHL in the day and or from BCHL and so forth. But now they do have, well, actually BCHL, they did have that opportunity. They just weren't as high end of players to make that money. So here's some interesting news I want to bring out about the NCAA. So first of all, I do want to say Providence College adds Brandon Wheat Kings captain Quinn Mante. He's a 20-year-old defenseman. He had 250 games, and he put up about 45 points this year. He is moving in to join Providence College. But I want to look at all the current. Now, this was yesterday at 3 o'clock. I had no time to go in today and to check this, but watch this. There is, and Jordan, you're going to love this if you don't already know this, okay? There is 148 commitments to go play in the NCAA Div 1. You guys catch that now? It just opened up, man. We are moving quick. And the high 60s now for the WHL, early 50s for the Ontario Hockey League, and the Q has the low 30s, comes to 148 commits. Now, the question is this good for D1 hockey? Should there be a limit? There is right now, because not all of you, some of you think there's 20, 30 Div 1 teams. There is 64 NCAA Division 1 teams. Now, if you figured that out at 26 players, which is their limit, that means there is 1,664 positions available, and 9% of those will be taken up with these new commits. First time ever. That increased. What's going to happen to all the people who would normally have gone there? So right now, they've taken probably the spot. I'm just going to go down a little bit to help you guys out here. Right now, there is 49 NCAA Div 1 commitments still this year with the BCHL. Now, next year will be the true test because we're one full year out. Because some of them signed, coming out of the BCHL into the... However, if they signed and they moved from the BCHL and they moved over to the Canadian Hockey League, they count as Canadian Hockey League, even though they were signed in the BCHL. So just a heads up. But that's pretty good for the BCHL to still have almost 50 commitments. Interesting enough. I'm a little worried about this. Those players that had those promises are now being pushed out, and a lot of American kids. So look, there's going to be now an influx of American kids starting to push up now into the Canadian Hockey League. There's already some. So now I see a lot more that are going to be coming in. And can I just say this? I want to go back and just mention on the BCHL, and then I'll pass over to you and you talk a little bit about the OHL information here. But the BCHL, at the end of this year, they have 450 alumni have played in the NCAA. 450. So that is incredible. That's representing 25% of all Division I players pretty much. So those numbers are amazing, and I wish all the best to the BCHL this year as they continue. Maybe you want to give everyone a little more information. I'll give them a break from my voice, and you can update them on some other BCHL news.
Well, the Fred Page Cup is happening with the Brooks Bandits versus the Chilliwack Chiefs. So if you're looking for more exciting hockey, because right now, wherever you look, there is exciting hockey on, whether it's the NHL, the BCHL, the IIHF, whatever you want, the PWHL. So much is going on that you pretty much can live by your TV, glued to it, glued to your couch, watching all things hockey. I know it's been what's it called? They recently thanked their league partners for the last 64 years for the Penticton V's with the great partnership. And you guys got to understand that just like our partnerships with our sponsors, we need partnerships in the BCHL to make this work. And you got to be able to partner up to promote the game, to work with one another in the community in order to grow the game. And that's what they did. So we appreciate that. We love seeing that. And we want to see more, if not another 64 years extra. As an aside, I know we've talked a lot about prospects, but in the OHL, Michael Misa has won the Red Tilson Trophy as the OHL's most outstanding player, as voted by accredited OHL media. Did you want to give any quick thoughts on the honor for Mr. Misa?
Yeah, it's so deserved. Misa, man, hats off. I want to take my hat off for you. I want to clap. I want to give you a standing ovation. Michael Misa deserves to go first overall, folks, to the New York Islanders this year. He deserves it. That guy has done nothing but work hard, his exceptional status. He has done everything to meet the standards, and I feel he gets a bad rap often. So, Michael Misa, man, may this be your year.
100%. And speaking of other OHL news, Luca Martelli and Sam Dickinson now own the most and second most productive postseasons in points by OHL defenders in a decade. That is impressive. Now, I know they can high big numbers, but you can still get up into the big numbers. And I believe Dickinson, who plays for the London Knights, who are in the playoffs right now, potentially could advance with one game this week, I believe it is. I'm trying to remember if it was tomorrow or if it's Friday. I can't remember. You guys can let me know. He had in game 4 2 goals and 2 assists for a total playoff career of 50 points, previously held by Dennis Wideman 2000 to 2004 of 46 points. I mean, he's 18 years old, Evan. This kid is insane. And during the regular season, he had 91 points, 29 goals, and 62 assists from the Blue Line. Those almost sound like borderline Cale Makar numbers. That's how insane it is. I'm not saying Cale Makar, but that is some pretty good company to keep. Good for them. Good for the London Knights. Let's see them advance to the finals and potentially win it all. Your quick thoughts there?
Well, could you imagine? Imagine Dickinson. He is so close. I believe he could be ready next year to play for the San Jose Sharks. Truth, it wouldn't hurt. I don't think at all his development. The guy is ready. San Jose, they're about to get again, so they have a second overall pick coming. These guys, this team is ready to be locked and loaded, and their future is incredible. If you look at the players that they have, chances are high they will be taking either Michael Misa or Matthew Schaefer. Either way, the Sharks are going to be deadly. And I think they want Matthew Schaefer, even as we had our Sharks correspondent on a while back. That would give them Dickinson and Schaefer, which is exactly what fans would be excited about.
100%. And I just want to make a comment. I know you believed that Michael Misa should go number 1 to the Islanders. But let me remind you of the 2022 NHL Draft. Who did everyone say was going to go number 1 and didn't even go till number 4? Now, there's no shame in going number 4. Mitch Marner went number 4. But Shane Wright was coveted as the number 1 guy, and he dropped to number 4 after Montreal went after Yurov Slafkovsky, who turned out to be a pretty good pick for that team, and he's really filled in well. Yeah. So never say never that the Islanders will go after Misa. he should potentially go because they need scoring. But I don't know if that's such a clear-cut answer right now. And I know there's a few players out of that region, specifically one kid, who potentially can be picked. You guys can let me know.
Yeah. So, and guys, we will have some, as we get closer to the draft, not only will I be releasing my official ranking soon, my top 15. I do have a top 32. I will post it and put it up there after I will be on another podcast. I will share that with you guys. We're talking about my rankings, but we will do our own mock draft. Okay. We will do our own mock saying who goes where, and we're going to have some debates and some arguments around that. Who specifically, so who will the Islanders take? Because a mock draft is based on who the team will take, not on who we think are the top players. So great. If we just move over to the Canadian Junior Hockey League, I told you guys all about the Centennial Cup coming up. I do want to give a shout out to Melfort Mustangs head coach Trevor Blevins of Saskatchewan. He was named Coach of the Year in conjunction with the NHL Coaches Association. He got the Darcy Hogan Mark Cross Memorial Award. So congratulations again. And that goes out specifically to Trevor Blevins. Guy, man, you've done a great job. This is his second year winning the championship. He's done a lot of great work. So, hey, shout out, man. Hey, why don't you update everybody on the World Hockey Championship and some stuff that just came down, man?
For sure. So there was a great game on, I think it was technically this morning, if I recall. I'm trying to remember my timing here. But in the last 24 hours, where the U.S. outbeat the the Norway team 6-5, with Paige Thompson having a hat trick and scoring a power play goal in overtime to give the U.S. a win. They did squander a 4-goal lead in Herning, Denmark. So yeah, it wasn't Wednesday, but because they're ahead of us, it feels like Tuesday here, right? Or it's like Wednesday morning, early morning. So I'm a little tired from watching it. But he does score. The U.S., of course, looking good. But the other powerhouse, Sidney Crosby and Team Canada, beating France 5-0. Now, of course, we know France isn't necessarily known for it, but one well-known player that's a Stanley Cup champion, if you recall, who's done well in the NHL is Pierre-Edouard. Yeah. See, I'm tongue-tied now. Pierre-Edouard. Yeah, I can't even say his name.
Just give him a nickname.
Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. Yeah. Say that 5 times fast. My apologies, Pierre. I'm butchering your name.
Edouard Bellemare. Yeah.
Great French player. He's been interviewed a few times. He played for Colorado and the Tampa Bay Lightning, amongst some others. Great depth player. Good for him. We love seeing other countries grow the game, and you love to see it.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
Nothing else.
And speaking of other countries, hey, can I just say, Nancy, I know you're a Panther fan too, and I do want to give a shout out. Florida right now, this last couple of weeks, you guys, the state of Florida has been our second highest state of following our show. Second highest behind Nevada. Ooh. Nevada still takes number one every week. I don't know how. Guys that follow us from there, hey, hats off. We appreciate all your work that you do. But yeah, Florida has done great, but Nevada, you still are number one. And California has picked it up again. So congratulations. But what I'm noticing is we need some of you Massachusetts, some of you Boston folk, and some of you New York group coming back in again. But can I move over across the seas for a moment and talk around the rink before you finish off with, say, the PWHL? Sure. I want to give you guys a quick update around the KHL here. So first of all, the Gagarin Cup is started. Their finals, it's never been this close to the finals in North America with the Stanley Cup. So it's kind of amazing the timing. But Locomotive and Tractor, and if you go to some of our previous weeks, I've tried to keep you updated as much as possible. So Tractor has won the first game, and they've gone up 1-0. They won a 2-1 game. And guess which former Montreal goaltending prospect actually was the winner and was probably the best goaltender in the league? Zach Fucale. Remember that name? Because I still am predicting he will get signed as a free agent at some time into an NHL contract. The guy has changed his goaltending. I don't know if it's the goaltending coaching over there. I don't know what's in the water, but I'll tell you, man, he has made some changes. And then a couple of things in the final in history, Radulov. So Alexander Radulov, you Predator fans know all about him. He has become the first player in KHL history to play in a Gagarin Cup final with 4 different teams. He's done it in 2011, 16, 23, and 25. I mean, congratulations, Radulov. And the last one I want to mention is their KHL regular season MVP, the MVP of the KHL. So Josh Levo, who many of you remember from the NHL, Maxim Shabanov, okay, who is a Russian, and Artem Galinov. All 3 of them are in the running, but I'm telling you, right now, Josh Levo will win this. 62 games, 49 goals, 80 points, playing in the KHL, number 1 overall. Shabanov is at 67, so you're talking 23-point difference. And then you have Galimov, who is sitting at 59 points. So literally, you're talking about 21 points difference. So the golden stick, I think, will go to Josh Levo. And I wonder, could this jumpstart a chance to come back into the NHL? But
great player for Vancouver and Toronto back in the day. He had some good approach. Toronto was really good back in the day with Dubas finding these gems that could fill in these holes in the bottom area. It didn't always work out long term, but they were always able to get a contract right after. So good for them. It'll be interesting to see. You guys can let us know who gets the golden stick. And finally, in our last segment of Around the Rink, in the PWHL news, we have learned that Renata Fast, Sophie Jacques, and Claire Thompson have all been named finalists for the PHWL Defender of the Year. These are all well-deserving players. They will be announced on June 25th at the Hard Rock Hotels in Ottawa, so make sure you tune in. But last season, Montreal's Erin Ambrose was the winner. She's a Canadian defender. All well-deserving. This is a similar in the NHL to like the Norris, players that can defend. So we love seeing it, and we wish all the nominees success in potentially winning. I don't know who I would pick. I think it'd be a little hard, but you can maybe let me know, guys, in the comments who you think. And Nancy says Vegas loves the Knights. Tickets are insane here, regular and post. And I've been there myself, Nancy. I was just there in March. It was a great atmosphere. It was fun. And that is how I got around the rink.
If you're a fan of hard-hitting, exciting hockey, catch the Kalkaska Battlers.
Around the Rink
Is brought to you by the Kalkaska Battlers. Let them be your local hockey heroes.
All right, we're getting to the final few minutes of the show. And before we get into a little bit more news, I did want to announce that it looks like Toronto has not been able to find an answer or score for the Panthers. And it sounds like, according to X, there's been a lot of, I think 2 now, jerseys thrown on the ice. They are not happy. Fans are leaving. They did pay a pretty penny for these tickets. Now, the series isn't over, but you are going back to Florida. You need to be better. Who do you put in net if Stolars is still injured or concussed? Quick thoughts, Evan, on that series.
Yeah, you got to go with man. They got to find a way to grind it out. Go out. All you got to do is go back there and win, and then come back and win again. I mean, I know it sounds like impossible, but it's not impossible. These are the Stanley Cup playoffs, and as you say, never say never. But hey, man, I just realized we only got 10 minutes, and we got still probably a half an hour of material. We got to get booking through this.
Well, I wanted to do a quick thing because we didn't mention the Panthers. So here is the rant of the night.
Puckpedia brings you
Rant of the Night.
Calling all hockey fans, stay on top of your game with Puckpedia. It's the ultimate source for NHL salary cap information.
Now, I love Twitter /X. I love posting things. But when you're the minority owner of the Florida Panthers, Mr. Doug Sifu, and you start posting very disgusting, hateful, random, bizarre tweets after a game, maybe you should be suspended by the NHL. And that is exactly what the NHL has done with the minority owner here, Doug. So I didn't like what he said. I'm not going to repeat it. We're not going to show it. You guys can go and look at it. It was kind of all over the place. had sometimes nothing to do with hockey. It went like it was bizarro, and it's come to the point where right now there's rumblings in the NHL and the back office to remove his name from last year's Stanley Cup because of some of the comments made. And again, politics in this sense does not belong in this game. You can make some comments towards Toronto, fair. You can shit on people. But what I also found online that I found very, very weird is that people talked about free speech. This is not what free speech is. Now, I'm in Canada. I understand. So maybe you think, what's this Pawel guy talking about? He knows nothing. That's true. But I know what I understand about the First Amendment, and it's about the fact that it's freedom to criticize your government, not a private entity like the NHL. So you can't just be saying anything thinking you're free of consequences, Evan. And I think that this puts a bad name and a disgusting taste of the Florida organization at a time when you're competing for the Stanley Cup and potentially could go again. Doug, what are you doing? Have a drink, put the phone down. You don't need this. Think what you want, but you can't be tweeting these things, especially at your level. But you know what? That's just me. Maybe they should make me the minority owner of the Florida Panthers. Because you know what I do? I go after Mitch Marner. That's how I'd get after the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's my rant. What do you got, Evan? You got anything?
Then, mic drop.
Puckpedia brings you
Rant of the Night.
calling all hockey fans. Stay on top of your game with Puckpedia. It's the ultimate source for NHL salary cap information.
All right, there's no easy way to transition from this, but we're going to get into the Minnesota Wild. You wanted to talk about something, and we did touch on the KHL.
So Daniel Yurov has been playing well in the KHL the last 2 seasons. He's a prospect of the Minnesota Wild. He's ready to come to the NHL, and that's great news for you Minnesota fans. Check in if you want more information. I didn't get this from the Bar Down Beauties, but go over there. You can check them out. Kristen's been a former guest of ours. They have several prospects. They have numbers coming off the board in their salary cap. So this is a good future. You guys are doing well. I don't think Bill Guerin's going anywhere. Not yet. Anyway, and get ready, guys. You have some great, exciting hockey still ahead in the next few years.
Excellent. And the Detroit Red Wings, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about them.
So one of the things, just really quickly, we could have put this into our by the numbers section, but Detroit is going to start with a penalty for overages based on bonuses that were paid out to Patrick Kane last season. They're the only team with this. The overage, a lot of teams have to pay out bonuses, but you have to have the salary cap for it. If it puts you over, it means that amount that you go over your salary cap this year because of bonuses will then apply into next year, and you'll have that less dollars. So unfortunately, the Red Wings, with all the things they're still trying to work out, they're going to have an overage going into next year because of Patrick Kane. But it is believed that there could be a possible contract re-signing for another year or two.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of another team that recently got eliminated in the first round, the New Jersey Devils, Tom Fitzgerald, had their end-of-season pressers. They talked about how changes are coming, including players, personnel, and not GM or head coach. So Sheldon Keefe is safe. Everyone up above in upper management is safe. Now, I will say it's always good that GMs talk about this and being proactive because you want to be better. However, I do give credence to this year's Devils teams because they were decimated, Evan, by injury, including on the blue line, and their top player, Jack Hughes. When you don't have your top scorer and top player, Jack Hughes, it's tough to put up points. And they gave Carolina a very hard time. So the way I look at it is like, you don't want to make too many changes. There's some middle of the pack, middle six, bottom six changes you may want to make. You may want to bolster the back end so you have some depth because you know that comes into play in the playoffs. But I don't think you want to do too much because I think the New Jersey Devils are a competitive team. And Ray, who's a big fan of the team, could probably share his thoughts on what that would be. Yeah. But that would be it. Go ahead.
So thinking about the Devils, Timo Meier, remember where he came from? The Sharks. The Sharks, we talked about how well they're doing, the draft pick. I want people to know that they do not have their 3rd round pick this year. And there's all this talk about trading down their projected top 10 pick in next year's draft to be able to. That's not a good idea, because I want you to remember what we talked about with the Flyers. Gavin McKenna year. You do not take the chance. So this year, do not look at them moving that out. I think that they're just going to go without that third round. And like the Oilers and many other teams, they're going to dip into Europe and into the NCAA, I think, for free agents.
Interesting. And the Flames, who are also another team that's looking to make it bounce back into the playoffs next year. It sounds like in a news article by Jesse Corvell-Litch of the Hockey Writers Association. Jesse Corvell-Litch is what's it called? A prospect that potentially is being scouted out by Calgary, as well as Anaheim and Los Angeles.
So it's not just a prospect. It is a superstar player that they are trying to look at a potential trade for. You guys ready for this? Panarin off of the New York Rangers. Anaheim, Los Angeles, and Calgary are all looking into this. And so we don't know what's going to happen, but things are going to be shook up in Madison Square Garden. Expect it. That's a mic drop.
Okay. And do you guys remember the Donov, the Saga, the Ottawa Senators, and the Vegas Golden Knights, and the paperwork that got slipped off someone's desk in order for that to be fumbled, and he vetoed that trade? Well, it sounds like the Sens have chosen not to forfeit their 2025 first-round pick this year and will pick 21st this year in the upcoming draft, but they will have to now forfeit, because they got the choice between one or the other, next year's potential first-round pick as a result. Now, that's most likely because they made the playoffs this year, Evan. They feel like they're a competitive team. They feel like they can make the playoffs again next year and go far. And so they're looking at potentially picking somebody to make an impact more immediate than later on. Because I think Ottawa now is like, this is our time to shine. Let's get back into it. And so we'll be interested to see what happens. But you guys can let us know who you think Ottawa will pick, and we will share our predictions with our mock draft. Finally, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we're running out of time. We're going to have to do a wrap. So why don't we hit in on the Oilers in Vegas? A couple notes around both teams. This is a big deal, and it's already got started here. So without sharing anything that's happening in the game, let's hit our last notes on the Oilers and the Vegas Golden Knights. Who do you want to start with and/or end with?
Let's talk about Evan Bouchard and how he's now become the second fastest D-man to 50 assists, and he did it in 60 playoff games.
Wow.
The only other faster, you may have heard of him. You guys ready for this? Bobby Orr, as Evan likes to say. Yeah. So good for him. He is one of those guys who's an RFA, potentially could be offer sheeted, which I'm sure Edmonton would not mind getting the picks for what he would be worth, because he's worth at least $8.5 million guaranteed. But good for Evan Bouchard, because he's elevated his game this year, especially after his dance partner, Mr. Matthias Ekholm, is still out. He is skating, Matthias Ekholm. But the Edmonton Oilers have a stranglehold on the series. And I don't think Vegas will go down without a fight. But there were some questionable calls against Edmonton, including the cross-check by, I think it was McNabb or Roy, into Kane's back as he was going into the goalie and went into Hill. Hill thought that was interference, rightfully so. Kane didn't get a penalty, even though Hill was a little bit unhinged and went after him. There was a bit of a scrum. He seemed to be hacking and whacking. He was all over the place, very emotional in the first period, kind of came down with after he had a conversation with Sean Burke, the goalie whisperer out in Vegas. But it sounds like Vegas needs to find its game, and Edmonton just elevated it, and they're getting production from all their guys. But your quick thoughts on this series?
So first of all, I do want to make mention that right now, Evan Bouchard is the highest point per game defenseman in NHL history that's played at least 50 games. So all you naysayers can say whatever you want. And by the way, $8.5 million would never cover it. Look at some of these guys get that don't even come close to that production. He will be minimum $9.5 million, likely in the tens, which would mean first, second, and third, or will mean four first. So you take that, and then you take that money, and then potentially we're not going to get to this to the UFAs. Maybe you go get a Provorov instead, and then pick up all those draft picks.
Or
but no one's
adoption.
going to sign to it, and they have to sign it by July 4th. Otherwise, he goes to arbitration. So you only have 4 days to actually get it done. It ain't happening. Can't see it happening at all. And let me say this. The whole charging for Kane when he's knocked in by another guy, I don't know how ridiculous this can be. Again, and I understand, like Nancy, how much you love the Vegas Golden Knights, but you got a goalie here who actually should have been penalized for leaving his net. I get it. He thought it was Kane doing it on purpose. He was jammed into it. Now, were they roughing him up in the preseason? Yep. Did they deserve penalties? Yep. But Aiden Hill, I don't know how he gets away with it. Not a single penalty he got in that entire time with everything he did. He went after Nuge. And then what about Stetcher? The guy gets elbowed in the face. He's not thrilled about it, so he hits Howden hard, right? He's bleeding. It should be reviewed. It should be reviewed. And you say, well, you can't. They didn't call the play. Go back to the high stick with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins these playoffs, and he cuffed someone, and so they go back and so when he did that, he got a penalty even still afterwards. Same thing should have happened against Stetcher. It's the rules, but this is why they're the least penalized team. I like Vegas. Don't get me wrong, but it is frustrating for people. But I will say this. I have saw a lot of players nowadays, and they're just better at it with a lot of their veterans. They step their legs. I like to show a video to show you guys how they will go over a stick and step over with their skate so it gets hooked in their legs and they fall. There's nowhere to go, so you will fall. They also have a way of wrapping their arm in so they actually hook the stick into their arm. Corey Perry is a wonder. He does the same thing with the Oilers, and he draws penalties. Yeah, he should be the one getting the penalties. So all I can say is right now with this series, listen, they could close out Edmonton, okay? And close out games, Edmonton could win. And if they close out this series tonight, they are 42, 19, 20, and 11, 42 and 19 all time, and they would be 20 and 11 on the road in closing series out in their lifetime. I mean, that's insane. And right now, even the power play, how could they have played 10 playoff games and never, and remember all the skill and talent they have, and never have more power plays than the opposing team, right? It's just like, it's interesting. I'm not trying to cry. You know what? I don't feel sorry for them. They're fine. They're playing 5-on-5, but they have a -9 in penalty differential in the playoffs, and that don't make sense to me, man. So interesting.
Yeah, 100%. And with that, we're going to finish on the final two series. Dallas and Winnipeg. Dallas, again, also has a stranglehold on the Winnipeg Jets 3-1. Mikko Rantanen is a beast. You go from back-to-back hat tricks. And then one of their pickups, Mikael Granlund, also scores a hat trick last game. A pickup from the San Jose Sharks. Good pickup right now. Looks like a brilliant move. Your quick thoughts on this series, and what does Winnipeg need to do, not only to win at home, but finally win on the road? They are struggling on the road. And what is it with the confidence with Hellebuck? And Hellebuck just looks like a regular man. He looks human. In the regular season, Evan, he was superhuman. But go ahead.
I will say that I am not noticing Hellebuck with his puck tracking's good, his lateral movement's good. He's seemed to be square to the puck. There's no issues there. But what I am noticing is he's not making the saves that are the superhero saves right now. It's like he's looking like Vasilevsky and just being like regular human, which will not win you. And the team cannot score. We said this at the beginning. I said someone like Kyle Connor, because I don't think Mark Scheifele can be the guy. Kyle Connor is going to have to step up and lead this team as its superstar for these playoffs, or they're not getting past even the first round. Here they are. They're in the second round, but right now they're struggling, and I think they're the better team. They're dominating the play. They have more offensive zone time. They're getting more shots. But I will say, I feel Dallas gets the benefit of the play, much like Vegas. I mean, I saw Jamie Benn. He jumped up into Mark Scheifele to hit him. No call whatsoever. I get it. It's frustrating. But these veteran teams know what they're doing. That's what someone like Evander Kane does too, right? He finds ways, or Hyman. these experienced vets, they're there in the playoffs and teams want them for a reason. You don't have them, you hate them. You have them, you love them. And I think that's what's going on.
And we have to also note that Shifley is still dealing with that nagging injury that he sustained versus the St. Louis Blues, where he was out for game, I believe it was 5 and 6, and came back in game 7. So it goes to show you that, things go on as time goes on. A lot of these guys are battling through things right now that we don't even know, and we found out if and or when the series end. And Nancy says Pete will do it. It'll be interesting to see. And quickly to note, Evan, in the Stanley Cup player performance for an era adjusted of points per game since 1968, with a minimum played of 50 games, Mr. McDavid is at number 2. Draisaitl's at number 4. McKinnon at number 7. Rantanen at number 8. Kucherov at number 11. Crosby at number 10. And Malkin and Bouchard at number 14 and 16. This is some elite talent. It goes to show you that there's another gear that some of these players turn on.
I know.
And Mikko Rantanen is up there right now, making his way, climbing up the charts. So good for him, and we wish him all the best. All right, and we're close to the end. We guys know that we are always called two guys in overtime. So where did you want to finish off before the end?
I'm done. No, I'm done. We have other stuff. We can hold off till next week. We will have a bigger discussion. So you keep dragging shows on. So you go ahead and drag the show, and I'll be the nice guy. And people say I got to get to a game, so you go ahead and share.
Yes, but because the fans, and we have a lot of people tuning in right now, especially from Nevada, and we cannot disappoint them. I want to know your quick thoughts, because this series could end as well. The Carolina Hurricanes versus the Washington Capitals, up 3-1. Freddie Anderson having a career season after that questionable injury and worry that he may not get back into it. And Tom Wilson agitating the team after being down with the fake Carolina surge. He was doing this. Your quick thoughts on this series, and then we'll wrap it up. I promise.
Yeah. No, I think this is the most boring series of them all. I still feel like that. I am honestly, I think I forget who was the guy that called it out. It was like going to something, and then they said afterwards.
Pete Blackburn.
Yeah. Pete Blackburn. And then said
baptism, or going the Edmonton Oilers game. Vegas game is like
strip club.
To go into the strip.
It's like from a baptism to a strip club is what it's like between these two games. I don't know why. I did not think this was Washington's year. I would look out for them next year, but there's a few things that I think they need to change, but they just did not line up well with their Hurricanes. I don't see them making the comeback. I mean, I hope it goes to a 7-game and they go into an overtime. That's my hope, but I don't think it's happening.
It's finally showing his age, but you've got other players that need to contribute, including Poitras, Wilson. I'm looking at some of the younger guys.
Go look at the scoring and how many
only have 1 assist.
Yeah, but he's a young guy and he's just got thrown in at the end of the year, so I get it.
I agree. So on that note, you guys can let us know your thoughts on this series. Nancy says game is on.
There you go. Me too.
All the best. We are here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Follow us on Facebook, on YouTube. Give us a follow and subscribe to our channel with our shorts, our weekly videos. Remember to go check out our articles. We're posting in ongoing times, things happening around the league. And of course, a big thank you to our sponsors, Puckpedia, GR Web Design, Penny Billionaires for their great intro song, and Kalkaska Battlers, who have now folded but have become a new team. So we're going to be working on updating that. And anything else, Evan?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that was my last thing I want to go out with. The Kalkaska Battlers, we will send some more information and put it up actually on our, I was going to do a write-up that I'm taking from them. They are just being recreated, officially folding and then restarting that same lineup, the same group, and they'll be moving as much over to Gaylord. So we'll still be staying connected, but we'll update you on what's happening for next season.
Well, guys, that is it for us. Again, at Two Guys in Honky Tonk, we are back here next week. Thank you so much. And as always,
in the meantime and in between time,
keep your sticks on the ice, stay safe, enjoy hockey play.